I've wanted to tell my story for quite a while now, just to let the public know and let people know the realisation and the real situation that the people who are most vulnerable in our society are facing. As I grew up as a child, my mum was mentally ill, so she was in and out of mental institutions. She struggled a lot with her own mental health, and it really had a big impact on me because within every 2 years we'd move from place to place. She'd run up debts and not be able to pay it, and then we'd have to move on somewhere else, so I was having to change school every 2 years. So a lot of my education got lost. I had no role models. I didn't really have any sense of what was right and what was wrong, because with my mum being ill, some days something would be okay and other days something wouldn't be okay. So you never really knew where you stood, so I was always scared. I went through quite a traumatic stage at the age of 7. My mum having boyfriends, and then boyfriend after boyfriend after boyfriend. So this was going on for years. My mum would make friends with like people who were mentally ill, or people that had addictions, or people that were also vulnerable like herself. My mum, one day in anger, she just kicked me out. I had nowhere to go, and she put me in a taxi and sent me to who I thought was my dad. And then the last partner she had, when I was living at home, he locked me in the bedroom for like 6 months or more. I don't know how long it went on for, but I was only allowed to leave the room to go to school, and that was it. I was kept in bedroom. He used to beat me and tell me I was possessed by the devil and that there was something wrong with me. And this went on for so long, and one day my mum just went mad, and basically kicked me out, sent me to who I thought was my dad again. And I stayed at my dad's, and this time she wasn't letting me go back home. And all I remember is one day, who I thought was my dad, he turned around and said, "You need to go and pack your stuff." And I was like, "Oh, why am I going back home?" He was like, "No, you're going into care. I can't look after you." I had a lot of weight to carry, and I remember the social worker turning up, and I didn't want to show it in front of my dad, but as soon as I got in the car and he's gone round the corner, I just burst out crying. The next thing, I was driven to a judge's office, and a judge signed a full care order, and they placed me in care. So while I was in care, there was other children I had to deal with, kids who were bullies, and there were kids who had far deeper or worse traumatic experiences than myself. Unbeknown to my mum, I was sexually abused by my babysitter, who was a woman. She was 16, and she sexually abused me till I was like 8 or 9 years old. Because I'd learned from my parents that secrets were to be kept secret, I never told them. I never told my mum till I was 14. I never talked about it with any counsellor until I was 40 years old. I'm now 45. I'm 5 years into my change, and from being a young person in care and being took away from the home that you love, even though things were tough at home, I did love my mum, and I would have rather have put up with that than be put in care and totally rejected. And there was a lot of abuse going on, and even in care homes there was abuse going on. It wasn't talked about, and kids wouldn't discuss it, and if the child became a problem, they'd just move them on. I started to get rebellious, and I just started to hate authority and reject authority, because all I'd ever seen is authority try to manipulate or dominate my life and tell me what I can and can't do. And I've had parents who were the worst role models in the world teach me about life and what I perceived life to be. And then when I went into a care home, obviously they had a lot of work to do, and I had to see a child psychologist. So I made every session easy. I just wouldn't tell them. I never told them once about being abused and about suffering, you know, being beaten and being told that I was the devil, and being locked in my bedroom. While I was in care, I didn't get any help. I didn't get, I mean, I seen a child psychologist, but I was always told to keep things quiet and keep secrets, so the truth never came out. We used to sneak out at night, and we're only like 13 years old, and it started out, we was just going out stealing from cars just so we could have a cigarette or have a smoke. And then I started noticing people using drugs, and kids telling me, oh, my dad smokes cannabis, and I didn't know anything about drugs. I was really like naive, so I started researching it and started looking into it and reading up what drugs were about and what they did. And through kids who was sniffing glue and gas and abusing solvents, I started to do the same. And it made me feel good. It put me in another place where I wasn't living with a troubled mind, or I wasn't living with the grief of not being part of a family, or I was just conforming with the other kids because I wanted to be part of the in crowd as well. One guy wanted to escalate from going into robbing cars to burgling a house, and at first I was like, I'm not doing that, there's no way. And he punched me, he literally punched me out and sent me flying. But as the years went on, the crime that I was committing got worse and worse until I remember we were shoplifting and my mate got caught, and the guy literally tried to grab my mate. He was quite a big lad, and he's literally battered this guy all over the shop. Obviously the police have turned up, they know who it is from our descriptions. We went to court, and I remember seeing my mate get sent down, and I was only like 14, and I was scared thinking I was going to go to prison or whatever, but I was lucky, I got probation. So I started to work with probation, but they did no real work on why we were doing crime, and it was to fund smoking and just to fund us sniffing glue. And most of the time we'd steal it anyway. We'd go shops and shoplift, we'd scarf school. I never attended school for like maybe a good couple of years because I was skiving all the time. I decided to start fighting back. I'd had enough of being pushed around by people, the care system, and I started to turn from a good kid into a resentful kid and into a kid that was... I wasn't doing it for attention, I was doing it because I just felt different. I got something out of it, you know, it made me feel different. It made me feel like... It made me streetwise, and I got stronger for it. And I started to learn that, you know, how to look after myself. And I had to toughen up pretty quick, because some of these children that you meet in kids' homes, I mean, I've had them attack me with snooker cues, or try to stab me and stuff like that. And you know, when you've got to defend yourself to that level, it's psychologically kind of, it toughens you up. But no kid should have to experience or go through that. And you couldn't go to the staff, otherwise you'd be a grass. So I learnt to fight. I had to fight. And once kids started learning that if they touched me or whatever, I'd hit them back, or I'd go out my way to get them back, they pretty much left me alone. When I moved to this children's home, the Beaches, it's well known in Leicester. There was a guy who used to work there called Frank Beck. He wasn't the only member of staff who was abusing kids though. This is the thing. And it all got hushed up for a while. And I only recently admitted to social services and and I've got a solicitor who's now working on a case for me. I told them about being abused while I was in the children's home. It's took me till it's took me 30 years to be able to like disclose that, you know, to be able to talk about it.